Macron has recently been pushing for Europe to take greater responsibility for its own defense.
Once fully reliant on the American nuclear umbrella, Berlin is now looking to Britain and France to step in.
Europe has been preparing especially recently for the next scenario of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. According to European Union leaders, if Russian President Vladimir Putin emerges from the Ukraine war with a stronger hand, this could be the beginning of a devastating and very difficult period for Europe. After Ukraine, Putin could turn his focus away from the Eastern Bloc and toward the West. That is why the European side believes that Russia is now trying to be the dominant party in the peace negotiations. Countries like France, the United Kingdom, and Germany want to neutralize the Russian leader's most important military resources and take measures against them. France in particular has recently taken a very critical decision in this regard. The Paris government has announced that it wants to cooperate with Germany against the Moscow regime's trump card that has alarmed the West since the beginning of the war. Considering the Russian fighter jets with nuclear warheads, the French offered Germany fighter jets carrying nuclear weapons. Yes, that is correct. Paris is now trying to make a deal with Berlin against the nuclear rivalry war that nobody wants, and which may be behind the final curtain. We are going to analyze France's nuclear-capable aircraft move in detail. We will also look at the rivalry between Russia and the West over nuclear weapons. But first of all, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and give us a like to stay informed about our content. Let us get started. As we mentioned, France has suggested that it could deploy nuclear-armed fighter jets to Germany in order to strengthen Europe's defenses against Russia. This stunning proposal is seen as a direct response to the call by Friedrich Merz, Germany's likely next chancellor, for the United Kingdom and France to extend nuclear protection to Germany. After the Christian Democratic Union Party won the elections in Germany, Merz emphasized that under Donald Trump, Europe should become more independent from the United States. France's move seems to be in line with Merz's statements. Sources close to the Paris government believe that the deployment of nuclear-capable jets will send a strong message to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Diplomats in Berlin also believe the move will force Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer to make a similar commitment to European security. French President Emmanuel Macron flew to Washington to discuss the issue with Merz before meeting with Trump. Meeting with United States President Donald Trump, Macron said that any peace deal should not mean Ukraine's surrender and called on European countries to take more responsibility for their own defense. With these statements, Macron stated that he is ready to send nuclear-capable aircraft to Germany, while it is suggested that the United Kingdom wants to undertake the same mission. In other words, it is said that the United Kingdom wing also wants to deploy its nuclear-capable resources in Germany. Former United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson has acknowledged that there is a moral justification for Ukraine to develop its own nuclear weapons in light of the growing Russian threat. German diplomatic sources said that formal talks on European nuclear deterrence have not started. But Mr. Macron has pushed for a discussion on how France's nuclear weapons could contribute to Europe's defense. France's nuclear weapons stockpile consists of about 300 warheads, while the United Kingdom's Trident system relies on submarine missiles. Currently, the United States is deploying around 100 nuclear missiles in Germany as part of its NATO commitments. Britain's nuclear deterrent is integrated into the alliance, while France maintains an independent nuclear arsenal. All these sources point to a significant nuclear capacity. Europe's solidarity on this issue could force the Kremlin to take a step back, especially given that nuclear weapons are one of the trump cards that Russian President Vladimir Putin has constantly invoked. Because of Putin's threats, the world is currently preparing for a nuclear war scenario. Today, it is estimated that 9 countries possess nuclear-capable weapons. These countries include Russia, the United States, China, North Korea, the United Kingdom, France, India, Pakistan, and Israel. Russian leader Vladimir Putin has formed a much closer military alliance with China and North Korea against the West on the global axis. Having strengthened his hand considerably with this alliance group, Putin's latest nuclear threat against the West is constantly on the agenda. Putin believes that he has enough nuclear weapons against the West. Against Russia's 5,580 nuclear warheads, the United States has 5,044. The United Kingdom has 225 nuclear warheads, and France has 290 nuclear weapons of this type. So what would happen if a war broke out between all these nuclear-capable countries? Nuclear war is seen as a potential sign of the apocalypse that none of us want to hear about, perhaps the end of the world. One of the people who perhaps cares the least about this danger is undoubtedly Russian President Vladimir Putin. The maximum range of Russia's nuclear missiles is said to be 18,000 kilometers. The fact that Russia has conducted 715 nuclear explosion tests is also one of the factors that strengthen Vladimir Putin's hand. Trying to show all this power to the global arena, Putin, if you remember, announced new rules on the use of nuclear weapons and gave the latest signal that Moscow is ready to use atomic weapons in its defense. This was one of the clearest and strongest ultimatums to the West, and even directly to the United States. The Russian leader was constantly trying to show this threatening message in the world press. As you know, Putin is always accompanied to meetings, trips, and even funerals by a military aide carrying a special briefcase with launch codes for nuclear weapons. Russia's nuclear briefcase is traditionally carried by a naval officer. Named after Mount Cheget in the Caucasus Mountains, it is always with the president. The Russian naval officer carrying this briefcase, which is presumably used to order a nuclear attack, always walks a few steps behind Putin. The message here is clear. Within seconds, with a single button, Putin can order the naval officer to start a nuclear war. Ukraine is clearly one of the first areas where Putin will use his nuclear weapons capability by activating the button in this briefcase. Vladimir Putin has threatened a wider military showdown over the international alliance's failure to end its support for Ukraine by sending Russia's tactical nuclear weapons to neighboring Belarus, a few hundred miles closer to the west. This move, announced by the Russian leader, was probably intended to increase pressure on the western flank. It was seen as Russia's long-standing nuclear saber, rattling aimed at intimidating the West into withdrawing its support for Ukraine. The West insists that the move does not substantially change the nature of Russia's threats to the alliance. But Putin's threat should not be underestimated. In addition to Belarus, Russia is also believed to have nuclear weapons in the Kaliningrad Peninsula, bordering Poland and Lithuania. A possible Russian nuclear missile attack on Ukraine from Belarus and Kaliningrad could upset the balance of power in the world. It is probably for all these reasons that French President Emmanuel Macron wants to send nuclear-capable aircraft to Germany. The United Kingdom's desire for cooperation on nuclear weapons within the European wing is also due to Putin's threatening approach. In other words, Europe is trying to take precautions before the danger of an unwanted nuclear war arises. Especially after Trump assumed the presidency, we see that the United States has diverged from the West on this issue and changed its stance. However, Russia's biggest rival on nuclear weapons is the United States. As we mentioned, it is estimated that in 2024, the United States will have a total of 5,044 nuclear warheads. This is quite close to the number of nuclear capacities that Russia possesses. 1,670 missiles in the United States' stockpile of nuclear warheads are claimed to be a strategic arsenal. In addition to this huge stockpile, the United States side may try to suppress the nuclear threat posed by Russia through Belarus and Kaliningrad from the Polish side. Poland's military capital restructuring also includes a desirable nuclear dimension. In an interview published on April 22nd, Polish President Andrzej Duda said that Poland could join 5 NATO countries that could deploy United States-made tactical nuclear weapons on their fighter jets in a European armed conflict. The leader of the National Security Bureau, Jacek Siwiera, expressed Poland's intention to obtain certification for the F-35A Lightning II aircraft, scheduled for deployment in 2024 to 25, and agreed to purchase 32 F-35s for $4.6 billion in 2022, enabling the delivery of B-61 free-fall nuclear bombs. Poland will receive its first F-35s within the next year, initially operating them at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona for training Polish pilots. All complements will be delivered to Poland by 2030. But Poland already has advanced F-16 jets that are currently capable of carrying out the nuclear mission. This means that if Russia were to launch a nuclear attack on Ukraine from Belarus or Kaliningrad, the United States could respond with NATO member Poland, which it sees as its Eastern European stronghold. In addition, 5 European NATO countries are currently covered by NATO's nuclear sharing arrangement and together deploy an estimated 100 forward-deployed American nuclear weapons on their territory. The United States has deployed around 180 B-61 gravity bombs at military bases in Belgium, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, and Turkey for launch from short-range fighter jets. With such a deterrent nuclear potential in the hands of the United States and other NATO members, Putin is still trying to pressure the West to restrict long-range missile and other military aid to Ukraine. There are, of course, specific reasons for Putin to adopt such a threatening approach. This reason is Oreshnik itself. The Oreshnik IRBM is a dark threat that Russian President Vladimir Putin has been talking about lately. This medium-range ballistic missile was last seen in the Dnipro region of Ukraine. 6 short bursts of fire in this region brought the Oreshnik to light. Over time, the Oreshnik IRBM, Vladimir Putin's most trusted missile, has become one of the biggest concerns for Kiev and the West. But should the world really fear the Oreshnik ballistic missile, which has emerged as a new threat? How quickly can this missile reach Europe? Do the United States and the West have an equivalent Oreshnik missile, or air defense systems capable of intercepting it? There is some disagreement about whether Oreshnik meets the accepted understanding of what an IRBM actually is. The Oreshnik is classified by Western governments as an intermediate-range ballistic missile. The Kremlin claims that the missile is unstoppable and certainly poses a serious threat given the speed with which it finds its target. The missile travels at 10 times the speed of sound. The Oreshnik can reach Mach 10 and travel about 2.5 to 3.5 kilometers per second. The maximum range of the missile is 5,500 kilometers. Capable of hitting most of Europe and even the west coast of the United States, Oreshnik can reach Berlin in 15 minutes and London in 20 minutes. Contrary to its meaning, Oreshnik, which means hazelnut tree, is not as alarming as Putin makes it out to be. Once fired, the missile uses its rocket engines to accelerate rapidly until it reaches the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere, where it launches first-stage rockets that run out of fuel. Multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles are then released and move through space toward the target area. The system is most vulnerable when it is moving at its slowest speed. The Oreshnik 6 warheads can then be independently targeted. It is this critical feature that makes it very difficult to successfully defend against this missile. Capable of carrying 6 or 8 nuclear warheads, the missile's targets are unknown until the last moment. The re-entry trajectory from the edge of the atmosphere allows the missile system to generate speed that makes tracking and destruction a difficult task to accomplish. Russia is well aware of this menacing ballistic missile power. The Russians are even making new plans for the Oreshnik. Putin stated that they will continue to test this missile. Putin also said that Russia could deploy the new Oreshnik medium-range hypersonic missile on the territory of its ally Belarus in the second half of next year. This statement reignited the controversial deployment of Russian nuclear weapons in Belarus at the time. Putin said that the deployment of the Oreshnik missile would depend on the completion of mass production in Russia. Putin's remarks came in response to Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko's request for additional security measures, citing threats from neighboring members of the alliance such as Poland, Lithuania, and Germany. Despite the common threats from Belarus and Russia, experts have different views on the deployment of the Oreshnik missile. Experts believe that mass production of the missile could take years due to systemic deficiencies in Russia's defense industry. Despite these shortcomings, Belarus was still enthusiastic. Belarusian Foreign Minister Maxim Ryzhenkov stated that the placement of Oreshnik missiles on Belarusian territory would strengthen the country's position in future negotiations with the West. When asked about the possibility of new sanctions against Belarus, Ryzhenkov dismissed these concerns, noting that the country had faced numerous sanctions before, but that they had had little effect. Meanwhile, analysts at the Institute for the Study of War argue that the deployment of the Oreshnik missile system in Belarus does not increase the risk of a missile attack on Ukraine or alliance countries. They believe that the Kremlin's actions have a broader strategic goal, namely to expand Russia's military presence in Belarus and further erode the country's sovereignty through the Union State framework, which aims to create a deeper integration between the two countries. Analysts also believe that the missile deployment is aimed at consolidating Russia's control over Belarus, rather than posing a direct threat to neighboring countries. But what if Putin decides to cross all red lines and fire this missile? Does Europe or the alliance have such an inventory? The equivalent of the Oreshnik in the alliance's arsenal is the Minuteman III IRBM system, designed primarily for the delivery of nuclear weapons. It is unclear whether this missile system can deliver nuclear warheads as well as conventional munitions. In the United Kingdom, it is believed that there is a system capable of intercepting Russia's Oreshnik missile. You may recall that United Kingdom military officials unveiled a new laser weapon that costs about $13 per shot and could save tens of millions of dollars compared to missile interceptors that currently do the same job. In a video released by the United Kingdom Ministry of Defense of a test of the laser-guided energy weapon system called Dragonfire, the laser was successfully used against an aerial target during a demonstration in Scotland. The video showed a bright laser beam piercing the night sky above a firing range in the remote Hebrides archipelago, creating a ball of light as it struck its target, a potential game-changer for air defense. The Defense Department said the Dragonfire could accurately hit a target as small as a coin at long ranges, but gave no details. The exact range of the weapon was also kept secret. The laser beam can cut through metal and cause structural damage or more impactful consequences if the warhead is targeted, the United Kingdom Defense Ministry said in a statement. And the laser weapon is claimed to hit its targets at a fraction of the cost of existing air defense missiles. If it is developed and deployed, the United Kingdom wing will have shaken Russia's nuclear weapons trump card considerably. As we can see, the issue of an unwanted nuclear war is constantly being discussed. Countries around the world are preparing for this possibility. Therefore, it is not really a surprise that France wants to send its latest nuclear-capable aircraft to Germany. Allegations of the United Kingdom's support for such an activity are seen as one of the expected outcomes. It is thought that the West will start to talk about nuclear weapons more intensely as Russia increases its threats in the future. Thank you for choosing us.